Now, if I hit the lottery, had a bunch of money to burn and wanted to buy a tractor, what would I buy? Well, to be honest, I think I'd buy the same exact tractor. This tractor has a Kubota 3-cylinder diesel engine and it produces about 26 horsepower. Not a ton of horsepower, but it's very torquey. And where this tractor really gets its oomph is from that hydraulic pump. The hydraulics on this machine are incredible. Now, the weight of this tractor, it's fairly lightweight. According to my research, it weighs between 4,000 to 4,600 pounds, equipped with everything on it right now, which a little over 2 tons for what you get here, a TLB unit. I think that's quite lightweight. Lift capacity of the front bucket, about 1,300 pounds. Now, to me, this tractor is the Swiss Army knife of tractors. And that's due in part to how it's equipped and the options that were selected when it was being built. So for the loader, we have a skid steer quick attach bucket. So we have these 2 levers, and you flip these up on either side. That one's a little bit stuck. But then you can receive any skid steer attachment on the front of this machine. Additionally, this tractor was spec'd out with the option of a hydraulic third function valve on the front, which is phenomenal. The hydraulic flow isn't high flow, so it really doesn't have the flow to operate, say, a snowblower or something very demanding hydraulic-wise. But if you want to hook up a grapple bucket, an auger, a snowplow with articulating functions from hydraulic cylinders, this machine is more than capable of flowing the hydraulics to that. But again, the skid steer quick attach plate on the front of the tractor is just phenomenal in conjunction with that third function valve. And this is your view from the operator's seat. You can see this tractor has phenomenal visibility. You can see exactly what you're doing. Fun fact, this indicator right here, this is actually a bucket level indicator. So when this falls in the slot right there, that's a good way to tell if the bucket is sitting level. In case you didn't know that. Another fun fact, I actually purchased these halogen off-road lights from Northern Tool about 15 years ago. See, they're kind of falling apart now, and these are nothing compared to those LED lights you get nowadays, but had a lot of good times in this tractor. Anyway, start going over the controls. Of course, you have your steering wheel. It is a tiltable steering wheel. This is your gear selector, so this does have a hydrostatic transmission, which I actually enjoy, but the downfall with the hydrostatic transmission, I do believe you lose about 20% of the engine power as opposed to a clutch and gear driven transmission, but it's nice to be able to just go forward and back really quick, which I think a hydrostatic transmission is absolutely the right choice for this tractor. We have our PTO control lever, and then also this slot right here, I believe this would be for if you have the option of getting the PTO output shaft on the rear, mid, or front section of the tractor. So I think you'd be able to select which specific PTO comes on, and that would be your engagement lever. We have independent rear brakes, which is really nice when you're working in the mud or when you have a lot of weight on the rear of the tractor. Like every now and then I'll lift up a really heavy rock with the backhoe and the front end will nose up a little bit and I don't really have steering with the wheel. So what I do at times is there's actually a lever where you can lock these 2 brake pedals together, but you know, when you don't have front steering or you're going through mud, you can have one foot operate your drive and you can take your other foot and hold down one brake, and that'll actually cause the tractor to want to turn, which I mean, it's very common. If you've ever operated a farm tractor, almost all of them have, you know, independent braking for the rear, but just wanted to point that out there as well. As for setting the parking brake, you know, you just hold both brake pedals down, hold down on that orange tab. I mean, it's very similar to how you set the brakes on a lawn tractor. Here we have the control for the front end loader, and also it's kind of hard to see, but there's actually 2 buttons here, and these are for the third function valve on the front of the machine. This is to turn a third function valve on. We have our RPM, and this is for the rear drawbar. And then these 2 slots right here, I believe these are for additional hydraulic valves in the rear. What do they call those? Satellite valves? Anyway, this tractor isn't equipped with them, but I think you have the option of having like 2 satellite valves installed back here, but yeah. Okay. Here's your 4-wheel drive engagement lever, which sometimes you have to rock the machine forward or backwards to engage or disengage that lever, which is pretty common on a lot of 4-wheel drive vehicles. You know, this tractor is no exception. And then over here we have our diff lock lever by our left heel. So what we can do, we can push down with our left heel on this lever. Again, we may have to turn the tractor or rock it back and forth to allow this lever to fully engage, meaning it falls all the way down and the rear diff engages. But when we hold down this diff lock engagement lever, both wheels are going to spin at the same time. So you can have the diff lock engaged, and then you can also have the four-wheel drive lever engaged, which also provides power to the front wheels. So you can get yourself out of a lot of sticky situations. So another cool thing, when this unit was shipped from the factory, the 3-point hitch drawbars were actually stored along the frame rail underneath the operator's seat, which there's actually some storage on the other side of the machine as well. I think we took those off, not 100% sure where they are at this point. To be honest, we never really used the 3-point hitch much. But if we go over to the backhoe here, I can fold this plate down. You can see we have our 2 drawbars. This is where you'd fill your hydraulic fluid. You can check your hydraulic fluid level here. And then we do have a PTO down here as well. Backup alarm, I actually installed that a while back. Stepfather got kind of pissed off about that and cut it out because it was too noisy. But, you know, when I was plowing, it kind of made sense. I wanted to make a little noise to warn people that I was backing up. So what if you want to use the 3-point hitch system, the PTO, or a drawbar? How do you remove the backhoe? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm not going to do it right now, but what you do, you'd lower down the hydraulics, you'd lower down the bucket, set the boom on the ground, and then you'd play around with the boom to alleviate the pressure on these 2 securing pins. And basically what you do after you remove those pins is you use the hydraulics of the backhoe to lift the backhoe up off the cradle, which there's actually like a catch. I want to see if I could get you a shot of it. Yeah, I'm actually going to be able to get you a shot of it. You see how there's kind of like a cradle down there for those lower pins? So you would just use your outriggers and you would lift that pin up out of the cradle, and then you would slowly drive forward a little bit, you know, just get enough clearance as to where you could detach the 2 hydraulic lines. And that's it. Then you're completely detached from the backhoe. So another thing that I love about this backhoe, and I think every backhoe should have, is a hydraulic thumb. Which, if you're moving any kind of rock, a hydraulic thumb is almost a necessity. You know, you could always weld on a fixed thumb or an adjustable thumb, but nothing beats a hydraulic thumb when you got to move a lot of rock. And in my area, we have a lot of rock. I got to tell you, the engineers of this tractor did such a phenomenal job with making this tractor as versatile as possible. You know, in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, you could remove that backhoe and just have the tractor and loader unit. You can run your 3-point hitch attachments, use that PTO, use the drawbar to pull a trailer. Just so well designed, so versatile. And then as for the loader, it doesn't easily detach from the tractor itself, but you have that skid steer quick attach, and you could throw on any skid steer attachment that the tractor will receive. Now I will tell you though, the limiting factor of this machine is its horsepower and its hydraulic flow. So you could put some huge skid steer attachments on the front of this machine, but again, will it have the horsepower to properly operate that implement, or the hydraulic flow to properly operate it? It depends what it is. Again, you know, smaller, slow hydraulic components, you know, like a snowplow or a grapple bucket, absolutely. But like a hydraulic tiller, absolutely not. After 18 years and 700 to 800 hours on the clock, what are my complaints? Has anything failed? Well, complaint number 1 would have to be the paint. Those of you that watch my channel probably watched Chucky 2009. At one point, he kind of went off the deep end. They removed his channel. I think he's back with a channel called Official Farming, Welding, and Archive Video, something to that nature. But he actually made a really good point in one of his videos, and that is quality control of these tractors. You know, you could take the cheapest, lowest quality auto manufacturer in the States, and the paint will definitely hold up better than almost any other tractor manufacturer out there. So the tractor manufacturers just aren't up there with paint quality. Of course, this unit has been baking in the sun for a while. I used to wax it. I used to take really good care of this unit. But what's pretty strange, I mean, you look at the hood, it's pretty shiny, and then over here on the loader side, you know, the paint's so faded. So it is what it is. I think it happens with all brands, but especially Kubota. As for the hydraulics, knock on wood, all the seals for all the cylinders are still pretty much leak-free. I mean, they're really solid. Every now and then a hydraulic hose will blow. I think over the years only 2 hoses have blown. I think it was also when this machine was in the custody of somebody else, so I don't know if they were doing something they weren't supposed to do, but, you know, it happens. The hydraulic hoses get fatigued over the years and they blow. It happens. These tie rod ends are shot. On both sides, they do need to be replaced, but just keeps getting put off. You know, it still steers all right, but it definitely increasing tire wear. You can see that the tires are starting to get dry rotted. I think this is the second set of rubbers that this machine has had. Where the diff lock is, there is some rot to the tin. You know, the tin for the floor here, pretty cheap. This is peeling back. This cover never really sat on here right. Looks like you do have a shaft right there, so this cover is pretty important. You know, I kind of wish they sealed up the rubber to the tin a little bit better. It just came up with a better design, because, you know, you get some corrosive material in here, I mean, forget about it. It's just going to spread underneath here and rot it out. So, and I could totally see some salt shooting up from that tire, hitting right here, and then, you know, finding its way down there. So let that be a lesson. Try and keep these machines out of the salt if you can. Now, the Backhoe probably has about 200 hours on it. I grease it every time I use it. I got to tell you, all the joints are still pretty darn tight. There is some slop in the bucket, but this is, you know, where the bucket quick attach system connects to the mechanism itself. But for all the greasable pins, I mean, everything is still pretty darn tight. But again, only 200 hours. You know, most excavators that you see at auction, you know, they have thousands of hours on them. So I think 200 hours really isn't that much use for the Backhoe. I think there is some kind of slow hydraulic leak up in the Backhoe valve body. Can tell that because there's a bit of residue that kind of runs down the hoses here, so really this cover should be opened up at some point and all the connections should be checked to ensure they're tight. Here's another small issue. You know, this is the original fuel cap and you can see it's been separating for quite some time. We've actually repaired this cap twice with epoxy. Looks like the section we did in epoxy continued to separate, so threaded portion is just separating with the top of the cap, so we'll have to address that here shortly, but I'm sure you could pick one of these aftermarket caps up for probably 10 bucks on Amazon now. So in conclusion, I think the Kubota B26 TLB is a phenomenal machine, and if I had the money, I would buy one in a heartbeat. It's light enough as to where it's not going to leave ruts in your lawn, and it's powerful enough to lift 1,300 pounds with the front bucket. In my opinion, it strikes a perfect chord in terms of the power to weight ratio. You can remove that Backhoe. You have the skid steer quick attach plate on the front of the machine. Now, if you are looking at purchasing one similar to this one, I highly recommend that you get one that has that third function valve on the front of the machine and also one that has a hydraulic thumb on the Backhoe. Spend the extra money. It's 100% worth it. I think you can purchase aftermarket kits for the third function valve if you want, but just really incredible machine. Reliable, few issues here and there, you know, hydraulic hose, it happens, it's a wear item, but overall, love this machine. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please drop a comment down below, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.